look. Interesting. I would have thought the birds might try to mob it a little bit more to chase it away. But I wonder if it's a case of they don't even mess with the black mamba. Although, no, saying that, I've seen starlings mob and chase black mambas away. So interesting, right at the top of the tree, and then just moved off. All right, well, I think he has disappeared, but what a wonderful sighting. That was great. That was very, very exciting. Gee, oh, awesome. Okay, we're going to move on from here, see what else we can find. And while I do that, let's head back to Stef on the bushwalk.
I must be honest with you that black mambas out here is one of those things that keep you awake at night while you're on foot walking around in the bush. It's one of those things like an angry male lion or an enraged mother elephant. You don't want to walk into close proximity to these mambas. The stories that have come out of the bush here about black mamba encounters, negative black mamba encounters, so envenomations, will be enough to keep you high in the sky and not walking around here for a lot. Anyway, you're back to me with this bagworm that we've got, and well, what I think to be a bagworm. The more I look at it, the more I'm convinced that this is a bagworm's home, a bagworm bag. But as VM quite aptly described it, just looking at it reminds him so much of a log cabin. And that is exactly what it is, albeit one that is constantly added to. They produce a very, very strong silk, and that is what ties this all together on the inside. But just have a look at this. Have a look at its attachment point there at the top. That is where it would have been stuck to the tree. And then the entrance to this bagworm's home is this soft entrance that's been camouflaged with a bunch of leaves and is being held tightly closed by what I believe to be the bagworm inside here. They have legs that they pull on the inside of their bag. They pull on the entrance, and they can hold the entrance to their bag pretty tight. I think what I'm going to do is put it back where I found it in a second. I found it underneath this peltiforum tree. But before we do that, have a look at these caterpillars busy eating this bush willow here. Just have a look at that silvery color on them. Not a very common color out here, silver. You do find silver and gold out here, in actual fact, colors. But it's not often that you see something with silver, as brightly silver as this particular one. What's quite interesting to me about this particular caterpillar is the fact that they react to me blowing on them. So they can react to carbon dioxide. Oh, and not now. But what this caterpillar was doing was waving its head around, and I think it's because he wants to try and stick me with that furry head of his. This is his head side. And those hairy nodules that you see on them quite often are coated in a toxic and caustic substance that can actually blister my skin quite badly. Not meant for humans, of course, it's meant for predators of these little guys, mainly birds. And what he'll do is, if he thinks a bird is about to eat him, he'll thrash about quite wildly, hoping to impale the bird with those hairs and cause the bird to leave him alone. So it's a defense mechanism for this particular caterpillar, but it gives him the most bizarre face. Have a look at the head on this caterpillar. This fluffy head that he has, and a silver body. As to what caterpillar this is from, either a moth or a butterfly, I am uncertain at the moment. You'd be surprised how difficult it is to find decent reference material for caterpillars. Lots of reference material on butterflies and moths, but not so much reference material on these caterpillars. He's now off to find his new leaf. He's got a friend that's in the same bush as him. Here we go. It's not unusual to find caterpillars of the same species infecting, I think is the word I'm looking for, the same leaves And you can just see how rapid this particular worm is busy eating that leaf. Just have a look at that. These semicircular cutlets with a very similar digestion system to an elephant, where it goes into the one side and comes out the other side as quickly as it can, and they will be accumulating as much metabolic energy as they can. It takes a lot of energy to turn from a worm into a moth and a caterpillar, and they need to eat as much and as quickly as possible to get that energy stored. Now, Marcel, you've asked me if this is a processionary worm caterpillar. Not this particular one. The processionary worms tend to be a little bit shorter. They also tend to be completely covered in a uniform fur, so it's not different colors like this particular one is. It's covered in the same color fur, and the hair is a little bit longer as well. We should start seeing the processionary worms at any time now. I mean, I would hope to see some processionary worms over the next couple of weeks and months. I think I'm going to go put this bagworm's log cabin back where I found it. I actually found it underneath the tree over here today. Must be honest with you, it's turning into a beautiful day for a walk. Not too sunny, not too cloudy, wind isn't howling, so it's not making us all scared. Just a nice day for a stroll. See what's happening around here. No, this stump is not moving, so no looking underneath that one right now. Tell you what, while we're busy looking for something interesting to show you, why don't we go and see what Jamie's up to?
So while Stef battles with his various stumps and trees, we are almost at Buffelshoek Dam. Now, I heard a little rumour that Byron saw a squacko heron. I'm not actually 100% sure where he saw the squacko heron, but that is a bird that I have not added to my Djuma bird list. So that is definitely a bird that I would like to see. Now, apparently all of you spotted it on the Djuma Dam, Jerry tells me. I would very much like to see a squacko heron here. The place that I worked before here, we had two flowing, or pretty much year-round flowing rivers, and we used to see all kinds of things like green-backed herons and black herons and, excuse me, sorry, my allergies are playing up, and squackos all the time. But it would be very nice to add that particular bird to my Djuma bird list that I keep. I was also chatting a little bit to Genre about the purple Tarako. For some reason that name today just doesn't want to stay in my head. It is a type of go-away bird. No, it's not a type of go-away bird. It's related to the go-away bird. It is basically a lurry. And I will show you a picture of what that particular bird looks like in my book once we get to Buffelshoek Dam, depending on what's there, of course. Now that's another bird that I have heard, but not yet added to my Djuma bird list. Used to see it all the time in a river known as the Magpie River. The Magpie flowed into the Salati, which flows into the Olifants, ultimately, which is one of the biggest rivers in South Africa and one of the biggest rivers in Kruger. Right, let us see what bird life is here. Perhaps our squacko heron has decided to come to Buffelshoek Dam. No. On first glance, no, it has not. There is, however, one ubiquitous Egyptian goose. I wonder if it is one of two, and if perhaps our Egyptian goose pair of Buffelshoek Dam have managed to have any chicks yet. Goslings. Doesn't look like it. Blacksmith Lapwing. Protesting furiously at the presence of the goose, despite the goose's complete harmlessness to the blacksmith lapwing. They're called blacksmith lapwings because their chirping sounds like supposedly the sound of a blacksmith's workshop. So basically the banging of an anvil or a hammer on an anvil. Very, very vocal birds. Also quite pretty birds, underappreciated perhaps because we see them all the time. Right, what was I going to look up for you while we look at our birds?
The purple Turok.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you very much. I'm so glad one of us is on form. Purple Crested Turok. That is what I'm looking for. As soon as I remember how numbers work. There we go. It is a bird that I long to put on your bird list and on camera. I'm not sure whether any of you, I'm sure some of you must have seen this particular bird at some point on the live drives. And I'm actually very interested to hear if you have. The purple crested Turok. It looks a great deal like a go-away bird that fell into a pot of paint, with its bright splodges of blue and green. Actually, the reason that it is, well, no, actually it's not the reason it's called the Turok. There is a certain pigment. There's actually two pigments, the green pigment, the true green pigment, and the true red pigment, that only the Turokos have. So all of the other reds are caused by different pigments, but the true reds and the true greens are only found in the Turokos, and the pigment is actually called Turoko verdin. The rest of the bird species, their colours are combined by sort of yellows and oranges, or blacks, and then the reflection of light, or the scattering of light particles. So the Turokos are the only ones with that particular pigment. It's utterly fascinating, and it's very striking in flight. When you see a purple crested Turok, you immediately see that flash of red as they fly over you. So I'm not sure, please do let me know if you have ever seen a purple crested Turok. A purple crested Turok on either on these live drives or on the Djuma Dam, because I know they are here. Very valid question from Jerry, to which I don't know the answer. Jerry would like to know how many birds I have on my Djuma bird list. Lots. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have a number to it. It's my list in my head of birds that I would like to see, birds that I have seen. And of course, one of our exciting things is the rare colour morphs, like my melanistic Jacobin cuckoo, which unfortunately I didn't manage to get on camera, but Wildebeest did. VM did manage to get it on camera, and we didn't have any signal, but VM managed to record it. So I've got to go and nag him for a screenshot of that so I can show you what it looks like. So the rare colour morphs are also always an exciting thing. I'm not sure, Jerry, and all of you, I'm not sure how many birds I have on my Djuma bird list since I started working here. I should. Since I encourage all of you to keep bird lists and to keep a sort of a record of which birds you see, I should have done exactly the same. I've completely forgot that this buffalo was here. Or this ex-buffalo. Interesting. Sorry, this is just for sensitive viewers. We're just going to have a little bit of a close look at the buffalo. I'm curious about the white stuff on its skin. And this buffalo died in the mud and was dragged outside of the Buffelshoek waterhole, and very little ended up feeding on it. What is that white stuff? Is that mold? It does, but I mean, it can't be. Lichen can't grow that fast. It does look like lichen, you are absolutely right. But I have a feeling it's not. It must be mold. Interesting, very interesting. We're seeing all kinds of new things. No, I mean, it really looks like lichen. But lichen is a very slow-growing substance. That is fascinating. As far as I can tell, although admittedly my nose is somewhat blocked, as you may have determined from the very nasal character of my voice, I can't smell anything. Genre, is it smelling?
Yeah, I mean, it's far less than it did 2 weeks ago, but
Genre says far less than it did 2 weeks ago, but it's still a bit smelly. It's completely different, I mean, just from speaking from experience, it's a completely different smell a few weeks later once it's been drying in the sun for a few days. It's still not pleasant, but it's certainly not as stomach churning as it was. I have to confess, as revolting as it is, I found this decomposition process fascinating. And sorry to any of you that suffer from, what is it called? That fear of holes? I was reading up about it recently. What's there? Oh, maggot. What are you doing? You're a little bit late. Is that a maggot or a caterpillar? You've seen a few of them. It's very fast moving it's too fast moving for a maggot. Oh, and back into one of the holes. What on earth is that fear? Trichophobia. I think that's how you pronounce it. Thank you to Jerry, who Googled that for me quickly. Something that I didn't know existed, but apparently certain people do suffer from a fear of close clustered holes, and that their fear and panic attacks can be triggered from something like an Aero chocolate, for example, with bubbles in it. I had no idea. I had no idea that was a thing. Fruits, apparently, in some cases, in some severe cases, people looking at strawberries with the seeds scattered all over them. They can't. They have some kind of adverse reaction, and they say it's probably our brain responding to dangerous things. Because of course holes are always cuckoo gone. I have not had much luck with the grey cuckoos. Every time I try and put one on camera, it disappears. But yes, sorry. Apologies to those of you who suffer from trichophobia. But the decomposition process of that buffalo has been particularly interesting. And actually, speaking of interesting things, since the mammal life seems to be evading us again this morning, apart from the lions, of course, and I would love to know where they managed to find a buffalo, because I have not seen a buffalo in a very long time. So they found the one remaining buffalo in this area. I have not seen one buffalo. It was in fact a male buffalo, by the way. Just an update on that. It was a male buffalo. It looked like a youngish male. So it was a male buffalo. As to where they found it, you'll guess, well, I know where they found it. They found it at Sydney's Dam. But the buffalo have been particularly absent. Leopard? What? No. Naughty. Naughty. It's not a leopard, sorry. It looked a little bit like a female leopard track. It is not, in fact. It is, in fact, a honey badger track. I just narrowly avoided it, so there where my car tracks veer off is the track that I saw. I thought leopard initially. It is not, in fact. It's not very clear, unfortunately, in this light and in this sand. You'll have to take my word for it that it is in fact a honey badger, complete with the sort of the claw marks just a little bit beyond the track. So it is a honey badger track. On offspring, it might have been a mating pair that I saw, but there are honey badgers around. Just feels like a very long time since we last saw them. When last did you see a honey badger, Genre? I don't know. Winter. I think my last honey badger sighting was winter as well. Perhaps these are a bit clearer. No, not really. No, you're right. Genre is saying the light is not fantastic. He is completely correct in that. Those basically look like dots in the sand. I suppose I probably could have told you that they were anything, but they are in fact honey badger tracks. They're just not very clear. We shall have to wait for a sunny day to add that particular one to some of your scrapbooks, your track scrapbooks. Oh, cool. Okay, so James Bear, thank you very much for letting us know that you did in fact see a Tarako on a drive in 2015. I wonder if it happened just before I started working here, or perhaps I was on leave. But thank you for sending that through to you. A lot of you are saying that you would love to add that to your bird list, that you haven't in fact got it on your list. And we'll have to make a special mission to try and add a purple-crested Turako to your bird lists. While I go off in search of purple-crested Turakos and other such mystic creatures, let's go over to Byron to see what he's up to.
And speaking about birds, Jamie, we found a red-crested Korhaan, and it's displaying beautifully on the termite mound. Now I'm going to see if we can get it to display. It does that beautiful aerial display where it shoots up into the air and loops, and then basically stops flapping its wings and parachutes down. Let's see, hang on. Tracker used to show me, and usually if they are calling like this, there's a fairly good chance that they might do that aerial display. It's definitely, I think, now calling back at us. Come on, I'd love to show you this. I can hear another one calling in the distance. Now they also do an amazing dance when they do land as a display. I've never seen it myself, I've only seen video footage of it. It usually happens quite quickly and they disappear when they do it. I'm not going to give up just yet, let's see. And I promise you it does work. I've seen it and I've done it before, but it all depends. They usually don't display this time of year, but that is a territorial call that it was doing, and the aerial display is a territorial display. There's another one calling. Come on, you've got to do it for us. Sometimes patience pays off. Interesting, it's now curious, I think. Come on, take off for us. Beautiful bird though. Watch, let's see. Where's he going? Wow, he's running fast. Can you still see him, Brian? Well done. Now, you can hear the other one calling in the distance. That whistle that it does, but this one now seems to be moving off. I'm just going to keep our eye on it because it may still do this display. It's going to run, I think, right behind the vehicle. Not interested in displaying for us today. Oh dear. Now, it's happened before where as I start the vehicle, then they take off. Let's see. I mean, I doubt it, but no. Oh well. It was worth a try. It is a beautiful display to watch and see. No, that bird's not displaying for us. Just calling to another male, I think, in the not too far distance. Anyway, beautiful to see them. You don't see them that often. So nice to see the red-crested Korhaan. Why don't we head back to Stef, who's still on the walk, and see what he is up to.
Yep, sometimes the drabbest birds have the most amazing displays, and that is definitely one of my favorite, is that red-crested Korhaan. Another favorite of mine is seeing ancient beings. I really like old trees, but in this particular instance, this is a little bit more animate than an old tree. Have a look at this. This is probably the oldest speaks-hinged tortoise I have ever seen. It is alive. He is inside there. And I'm making my assumption that this is an old tortoise based solely on the fact that you can see how these scutes have been rubbed almost completely smooth over the years. Now, tortoises this large in this particular area can get up to 70 years. I think it's probably a bit high. I would say probably between 50 and 70 years. But you're looking at an old grandfather of a tortoise here. It's just so nice to see. This tortoise has probably survived more things out here than what you can possibly imagine. Been out of lions' mouths, into hyenas' mouths, probably being played with by any number of predators. Seen floods, seen droughts, seen hibernations in the open, hibernations out of the open, or undercover I should say. Just really nice. You can see where this tortoise, this specific tortoise, gets their name, the hinged tortoises, from. There's a hinge that runs over here. That's not a crack in its shell. That's actually skin that you can see there. And they can hinge the back of their shells closed, protecting their tails, which lie under the side. This is the front side of the tortoise. He's retracted his head into his body, covering his vulnerable parts with quite well armored front legs. Now, you might wonder why we're not picking tortoises up. We don't really pick tortoises up out here. It can place them under a little bit of distress. When they're under stress, they release water from a sac in their small intestine right at the back here, which they store water in, called a bursa, and it just upsets them. We try not to pick up tortoises here as much as we can. We try not to have an impact on anything here. This particular tortoise is just hiding his head away. It's something that he would have done countless thousands of times in any number of circumstances. But what we're not going to do is pick it up. He's managed to weather the storm quite well, I must be honest. Relatively few scars. It's not uncommon to find tortoises of this age bearing tooth marks on their shell, and the fact that he's managed to stay out of the prying eyes of ground hornbills for this long just goes to show exactly how old he is, how wise he is. Now Lucy, you've asked what are the main predators of tortoises. To be honest with you, it's the large predators, lion, leopard, hyena, and then the ground hornbill, the southern ground hornbill, is one of the major predators on tortoises. Not much else here eats tortoises when they're full grown. When they're a bit younger though, when they are young tortoises, quite a lot of animals will actually prey on them, all the way from birds and herons and storks, you name it, will squash up little baby tortoises and eat them as a snack. This is one in probably a couple of thousand that have made it to this particular age. Now what I do want to show you, which is quite interesting, is these scutes over here have obviously been worn completely smooth over the years by this tortoise moving through vegetation. But come and have a look at the back here, which hasn't seen the abrasion that the top scutes have. Have a look at the back here. You can see those growth rings there. Very, very well developed growth rings. There's I would suppose there's a way of judging how old this tortoise would be by counting these rings, but to be quite honest with you, I don't know if it's a very accurate way of judging the age of these tortoises. I'm basing my assumption here purely on the fact that it's so large for this particular species of tortoise and has been worn completely smooth here over the years. A real nice person, or nice being I should say, not a person, a nice being to spend this morning with. Anyway, on the topic of beings, there are some primates that Jamie would like to show you.
Lots and lots of primates, actually, in the form of a baboon troop that, if I had to guess, I would say probably numbers about 30, maybe even 40 members strong. It is, I don't know exactly if it is the same group that we always see in this area, but I suspect that it is. Now, it is an exceptionally large baboon troop, and it's actually wonderful to see how much they have relaxed in our presence. There was a time, and I know that many of you years ago would spend hours watching the baboon troops, but there was a time when I first started working here where a baboon sighting was rare and exceedingly fleeting, where the baboons would just be dashing off in any which direction. Now, it's nice to see that they are slowly calming down and giving us a little bit of a chance to have some insight and observation into their characteristics. So there's one of the big males, and actually, no, I thought for a second he'd injured his tail, but his tail is just doing the normal thing of a baboon. Now, a big male like this probably weighs somewhere in the region of around 25 or so odd kilograms, so over 50 pounds. They do, however, have canines that rival a leopard's and are actually almost as large as a lion's, at least a lioness's. Now, they are massive creatures. There's a huge sexual dimorphism between the males and the females. Now, recently, we had a question about the blood types of baboons, because of course they are primates, and therefore falling into the same family group as humans. It was a question that I have to admit I was somewhat ill-prepared for at 5 o'clock in the morning. However, it was a very, very good question. And the question was whether or not baboons share the same blood types as humans. Oh, you don't do that. I'm not going to get any closer. I'm going to try and get us into a view that we can see at least that crowd over there. Otherwise, they're going to vanish completely. And we discussed, and eventually, thanks to many of you sending through the information, we learned that the old world monkeys do share very similar blood types to human beings. And I have thank you for those of you that sent through the research and the scientific papers. I have to confess, I have skimmed through and not gone into the great depth that the articles go into, but it does make for some fascinating reading if you're interested in that sort of thing. Essentially, obviously, things like chimpanzees have a very clear or relatively clear expression of the A, B, and O blood types, whereas baboons do have the antigens, or seem to have the antigens, but they don't seem to be present in great levels in their blood. Fascinating things. Now, you'll see, of course, the massive swellings underneath the tails. I always find the name quite amusing, and I don't know whether it's just because I've been pronouncing it wrong all of my life. They're known as ischial callosities, which for some reason the word callosity, unless I'm saying it wrong, and initially when I first started learning about ischial callosities, I thought it was ischial callocytes, which to me made a lot more sense, but it is callosities. And that swelling, of course, it tells baboons or conveys the message that you're looking at a sexually mature individual, and in that case a sexually mature female, whereas this little one, an immature one. They are fascinating in terms of their dynamics. and the way in which they interact with each other, and the way in which they have a very interesting, quite unique social structure, in that they're led by a couple, or at least protected by a couple of dominant males. So it's not like, well, I don't think it's really, you can't really compare them to lions or anything like that. They have a couple of males that share dominance. You don't have one particular group that is, or one particular individual that is more dominant than the others. They're fathers, and that social structure is known as oligarchy. And I mean, many of you will know this about me, but I have to confess that I have a residual childhood. I don't know, I wouldn't describe it as a dislike. I don't dislike any animals. Certainly don't dislike baboons. But there is a certain residual childhood reticence when it comes to baboons. Having been chased and terrified by them more than once as a child, and I think you'll find most South African children did. Where did they all go? They've all vanished. Now, David in Napa, speaking of our oligarchies, you wanted to know how many males could be in a big group. Unfortunately, sorry about this. We're going to be talking about baboons for a little while whilst looking at Nyala, but that's because our baboons have all but disappeared. David, I'm not sure what the maximum is. I know that there's sort of usually around 3 or so, depending on the size of a baboon troop, and baboon troops can be up to 40-50 members strong. So you can get 4, you can, I have seen up to 6 big dominant male baboons in a baboon troop before. As to whether or not that number goes higher, I'm not 100% sure. I think you will find that there will be a cut-off limit though. That was very well posed of those Nyala. So David, I'm not 100% sure what the maximum number of oligarchs there are, or godfathers there are in a baboon troop. I wanted to share the story of the Nyalas, because we got asked yesterday about whether or not there is a local legend as to why the male Nyala, which look completely different from the females, have these dark grey-brown coats, but they have tan stockings. And apparently one of you, and I'm not 100% sure who it will. Oh, there we go. Winter Prism on YouTube sent through there, because we were talking about whether or not we should make one up, because I didn't know any local legends about why Nyala bulls have stockings. But the Winter Prism did send through a lovely made up just so story that the female Nyalas got stuck in the mud, or a female Nyala got stuck in the mud, hence why they are that tan coloured. And perhaps even you could go so far as to say they used to be white, and then those are the only bits that they could manage to clean, just to add to Winter Prism's story. And then the male Nyala went in to rescue her. And as he walked into the reddish mud, he didn't have to go too deep in order to save her, so he ended up with reddish stockings, but the females were covered in the mud and therefore turned red themselves. This is not, of course, a true depiction of why it is that Nyala are the colour that they are, but it is a lovely story. And since I haven't managed to find a local legend explaining why it is that Nyala bulls have stockings, I thought that was quite an appropriate one. So thank you to Winter Prism, if in fact you are watching. If you are not, thank you anyway. Unfortunately, our baboons and Nyalas have completely vanished, but I think that we should head over to Stef on Bushwalk to see what he's up to.
If we can see that hippo, who with the runny tummy that we saw the tracks of a little bit earlier on today. And as you can see, Treehouse Dam is vacated at the moment. So that can only mean that hippo did a little bit of a long walk last night and is probably either in Twin Dams or in the big dam at Cheetah, which is a neighboring reserve off to our southern boundary. Not too far, it's either is possible. Hippos can walk an extraordinary amount of distance over an evening. It has been recorded of them walking up to 30 miles or so in one evening from one water source to another. That's unnecessary in this particular area, so I doubt that he'd managed to walk that far. But it's good to know that he's not here anymore. This was a little bit exposed. It's not that deep. That is the water table at the moment, so that is not just rainwater. We haven't had such substantial rains over the last couple of days that it would have filled up. So that is the water table right now, and it's not that deep. It's probably about knee deep, I think, at its deepest level, if that even. So for a fully grown hippopotamus to be lying out here in the exposed sun over the last couple of days, definitely not the best thing. They're going to need some mud, they're going to need some shade, probably a little bit of deep water. The perfect water for hippo is slightly shaded, deep enough to submerge their whole bodies, but where they can stand and just keep their nostrils, just the tips of their nostrils, out of the water, breathing every now and again before dipping their head into the bushes. Now, I've been remarking over here while we've been waiting to tell you about the hippo in treehouse. This dam wall was not reconstructed, it was strengthened at the beginning of the dry season. I think it was around about May or June, have you? I can't really remember. But you can see how quickly the dam walls plant communities have come back. I've been amazed at sitting over here and looking at how quickly the grasses, the different grasses and plants have managed to seed themselves here. All generally speaking quite hardy things. But what this is doing is it's stopping the soil erosion on the sides of this dam wall, and will stop weakening of the dam wall itself. And what is quite nice is this particular grass. This grass is the most amazing way of, it's been used as a kid's toy here for a couple of years, and I'm going to show you what they do with it. They put it between their arms like this, and they make it walk. And it hides itself. Now what you're having a look at over there is a marvel of Mother Nature. That is how these grass seeds bury themselves, and it's why this grass is such a successful pioneer species of grass. So this grass is able to bury its seeds in the movement of the soil. So soil does move, it moves through water, it moves through wind, and it moves through insects burrowing into the soil. But without other plants there, or without ants taking the seed into a nest, this plant has had to figure out how to get its seed buried in an area that has no other plant. So most other grass seeds wait until the grass seed rolls along and hits a barrier. This particular grass seed can bury itself. Let me just do it for you again. And it does it through a bunch of hooks. So the movement of the soil. Isn't that amazing? And it does it through a series of hooks that you can see over there that hook into the soil, all pointing in the same direction. And as the soil moves, the seed gets wedged in the cracks deeper and deeper, and will find purchase, and there it will germinate, and there it will become one of the pioneer grasses, one of the grasses that can populate an open patch of sand. Mother Nature, she does, well, not to say Mother Nature does like soil erosion. Plants don't like soil erosion. So it's up to plants to really stabilize areas, open patches of sand, and they do it with these fantastic kids' toys, like I say. A bit of a magic trick for kids. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Now, okay, you've just asked me if we ever get any water runoff from the mountains. We absolutely do, but because the mountains are about 90 miles from where we are, 80, 90 miles from where we are at the moment, the runoff has already come together to form river systems at the moment. So we have a couple of river systems in this area. We have the Willifants River, excuse me, the Klesiri River, the Timbavati River. What else is close by over here? Probably just that. The Sand River, oh yes, the Sand River and the Sabi River. Those are the 4 or 5 biggest rivers that we, and the Manyeleti River. Most of these are tributaries of 2 large rivers, the Willifants and the Sabi River. So by now, the Willifants and the Sabi River lie a few miles off in that side. I'd probably say about 20 or 30 miles off in this direction. So we're in between the small streamlets that come off of the mountains, but before we get to the really large rivers that take that water to the sea. And so we have these drainage lines that are quite big, but are relatively seasonal. So close to where we are now, we've got the Sand River that flows most years, most of the year. We've got the Sabi River about 30 miles or so in that direction. That flows all year round. We've got the Olifants River, which flows all year round as well. Although it goes down, they go down to quite shallow, probably about waist deep as an average depth over all of it. Right, let's carry on. No hippo here, so I can't show you, well, I wasn't going to show you his runny tummy with fear of being stepped on in any case. We might as well go and see what is going on down here in this direction and down this drainage line. It's been a long time since I've actually walked off here and seen exactly what is going on down here. Now Dale, you want to know when does our rainy season start? Dale, we've already gone into our rainy season. The rainy season here for me at least starts as soon as we get about 20 millimeters of rain, which is about this much of rain. We had that in October this year. I can't remember the exact date, but it was on David's birthday, one of our cameramen's birthday. We had our 20 mils of rain. So for me, that's when the rainy season starts, except that it stutters its way through to Christmas and into the new year. Our true heavy rains fall anywhere from January through to about the beginning or middle March about, with the last few big rainstorms happening at the end of March into the beginning of April, and then by the 1st of May I judge our wet season over, at least anyway. So we have wet season from October through to May, and then the dry season from May all the way through to October again. Alright, now on that note, why don't we send you over to Byron, who's got something exciting to tell you or show you. I didn't quite catch what that was.
Do I have something exciting? Not quite yet, Stef. I was hoping to find the Nkahuma Pride again. I know they were around this area somewhere, so I'm having a good look just to see if we can find them. But it's starting to warm up, so I wonder if they haven't moved off into the shade, perhaps. Let's have a look around here. I don't see anything just yet, because apparently they were chased off their kill this morning. I'm not sure why, or what really happened. It's starting to warm up really nicely now. I don't know, I don't see any lions anywhere just yet. Anyway, we'll see what else we can find. I just thought I'd drive around and just have a look if they were out in the open somewhere, but they possibly just moved into a thicket. And I know Jamie was fortunate enough to get to see them on the kill this morning, found them there, so that is great. Another buffalo yet again. A beautiful magpie shrike flying in front of us. Let's see if it lands. And there we go. Up at the top of the tree again, the glare is a bit difficult to see some of these birds. Makes it difficult. But luckily we can adjust the camera. Thank you, Brian. You can hear a red-chested cuckoo calling in the distance again. I haven't seen one for quite a while. As we know, the cuckoos are quite secretive. A little difficult to see. You hear them all the time, but you struggle to see them. Nice to see this little magpie shrike. It's amazing how it uses that tail to balance itself in the wind right on top of the branches. There it goes. I saw tracks earlier of a big bull elephant, really lovely large tracks, but it looked like from either very, very very early this morning, or actually last night, I think, because I saw some other tracks on top of it, Impala tracks and that. But I was hoping that maybe we'd bump into him along the way, but no luck. Oh, stay there. A beautiful emerald spotted wood dove. Stay, don't fly. Look at that. Emerald spotted wood dove. There it goes. But luckily you could see that beautiful little emerald spot on the wings. You caught a glimpse of it there. And it's nice. The emerald spotted wood dove. Lovely little bird. See some Impala up ahead. Just the one, it looks like, just a male that's running off. Oh, we've had a very, very lucky morning, I think. I mean, for all that we've seen already, the lions and then the young leopard this morning, and those hardy dart chicks. That was interesting. That was something really wonderful. Virginia, you wanted to know if those hardy dart chicks would be in danger from any predatory birds. Most definitely, Virginia, like all chicks, you know, they are vulnerable up in the nest. But it looked quite well hidden up in the canopy of that tree. And they are quite large, but I'm sure if, a bird like a gymnogene, for example, the African harrier hawk, if that found that nest and found those chicks, it would definitely kill them and feed on them. So they are at risk, but it's like any bird though. Any bird is at risk in the nest. As long as, who knows, the females around, maybe they'll be able to chase away any potential threat. Sure, it's really, really bright now. There's a very, very harsh glare. I think it's because of a bit of the cloud cover and that too, so it makes it quite difficult to drive around and see. Maybe we should get those, what's it, they've got the football players, American football players put the black markings under the eyes, apparently it helps for bright light. Maybe we should start doing that, Brian. Alright, well, I'm going to continue searching for whatever we may find. Let's head over to Jamie and get an update from her and see what she's got.
Well, there is something extraordinary about woodland kingfishers, and in fact, bye. Let's just rephrase that completely. There is a certain inevitability with the odd mornings such as these, where no matter what you try and get on camera, they seem determined to thwart you. They're not, of course. They're wild animals on their own schedule. And it's just our job to try and bring you these beautiful images. Well, at least we got a view of it. It was such stunning light for that particular kingfisher. Aha! I see you, but now my angle's all wrong. He's on the edge of that branch there, Gendre, on this big bush willow, the one that curves off to the right.
One right in front of it.
The big bush willow, if you zoom in, and then he is to the right of it. Well, I can't. The glare's reflecting off my monitor. He is. Oh dear, he's there. There he goes. It is the perennial guide problem to try and, when you've spotted something far away and you're trying to explain to a guest where to look, it's something that you slowly get used to. Luckily, our cameramen are on the ball. Okay, yes, that was slightly blind, but I hear you. That was a difficult one. I concede. Our cameramen, genre included, are on the ball when it comes to seeing things like that. But you do find yourself, when you're describing the position of something to a guest, going, the tree with leaves, the big one, and then being absolutely at a loss as to how to describe it any further. And that does invariably happen. Trying to describe, I find it particularly if you go to the Kruger. If you do a little trip around the Kruger National Park, because of course you can't off-road, it's a very different scenario, it's a very different setup. And often you'll pull up next to a vehicle and they'll be trying to describe to you where they've spotted this leopard at 300 meters. And it turns into a very interesting mime and caricature, or I don't know how to describe it. And they're pointing frantically, but of course you can't see where they're pointing because you're at a different angle and a different perspective. It does make for some very entertaining scenes. Fortunately, though, you did all get to see that kingfisher. So while I go and look for something that stays still, Duiker didn't stay still. While I look for something that stays still, perhaps Stef has had some more luck.
I haven't had much more luck with living things today. We're also just doing static things today. But look at this, it's been quite a while since we've actually had hyena with any sort of persistent presence on Djuma. But this, what we're having a look at over here, what I'm busy rolling around here, is the hyena scat, hyena dung. And it bleaches white like this in the sun because it contains quite a high percentage of potassium and calcium. Now, hyena have got these massively overdeveloped jaws, or overdeveloped jaws and muscles, and they use it to crack the marrow of bones. Now, the marrow of a bone lies inside here. Now, the marrow of bones is necessary for us and mammals because it produces blood, red blood cells as far as I know. And look at how thick the wall is of this particular bone. You can imagine what it would be like, what strength it would take to crush through that to get at this marrow. Why marrow? Marrow is incredibly rich in fat, and fats out here are very difficult to get. So hyena have developed these overdeveloped jaw muscles, not only to get to marrow, but also to dismember carcasses. But basically what happens is the bone goes into the hyena along with the marrow and comes out looking much the same as it did when it went in, and it starts to get bleached by the sun, as you can see over there. Only in this particular form, in the dung's particular form, unlike the very, very hard bone, the dung can be broken down into smaller pieces, and that potassium and that calcium that's available in these dung balls is used by a lot of animals. One in particular, animals use it for their vitamins and minerals, but one in particular that I quite enjoy is tortoises. Now, we were with that rather old Speaks hingeback tortoise a little bit earlier, and when that tortoise needs to lay eggs, quite often the females will come and look for hyena dung and eat hyena dung and use the excess potassium and calcium in their systems to produce hard-shelled eggs. Now, generally, tortoises will lay soft-shelled eggs in the absence of a lot of calcium. Their bodies just don't produce enough. I suppose when they've got to maintain a shell like they do, they don't have enough that they eat or get from their diet. But with the addition of some hyena dung in their diet, they can actually produce hard-shelled eggs. Isn't that such a nice fact? Now, Angelina, you just asked me, why doesn't the dung beetle roll the hyena poo? This was probably produced Angelina, when there were no dung beetles around. We do find dung beetles that do utilize hyena dung. They're not as common as the dung beetles that utilize the dung from herbivores. In other words, that roll rhinoceros or roll elephant dung. But you do find dung beetles and carrion beetles that specialize in breaking down the feces and the dung from carnivores. Now, hyena are definitely carnivores. They've got a large bacteria count in their feces. This one is very dry, but I'm still not going to pick it up. It's just a bad habit to pick up anything or the dung from anything that eats meat, at least anyway. So my prediction for you is that this was deposited at some point where there was no dung beetle activity, so in the dry season somewhere. How old this is at the moment, that is actually quite tough to say, to be honest with you. It could be this year, beginning of the dry season, couple of months old. Quite hard. Now, I couldn't quite catch the name there for the next question, but it was a question coming from Red, excuse me. Red, you asked me, would giraffe eat this dung as a form of picking up minerals? Red, I suppose they could. You do get giraffe eating bones. It's called osteophagy. I've seen more giraffe eat bones for calcium and potassium than I have seen giraffe eat hyena dung, and it's probably got a lot to do with the fact that it's just not that safe. You need to be quite specialized to be able to utilize the dung of another animal. Caprophagy or coprophagy as they call it, whereas osteophagy is something a little bit different. I can see where you are blurring the lines there, Red, and I can't really say conclusively whether or not giraffe will or won't, or whether any of the even-toed ungulates or even-toed herbivores would eat hyena dung. But I have seen even-toed ungulates, and all the antelope belong to that, warthogs, etc., giraffe. I have seen those even-toed ungulates practice osteophagy, or the chewing of bones, so that they can get the minerals, some trace minerals and elements that they need in their diet from the bones. I absolutely have seen that. So, undecided there, Red. If I were to give you a conclusive answer, my exam question would be no. They don't eat hyena dung. Giraffe don't eat hyena dung, but they will chew on bones. Alrighty. And on that particular note, I think let's carry on going. Watch out here, VM. You're going to get stuck, your aerial there. Let's just see what we've got going for ourselves in this bush. This is one of those bushman's grapes that infest the area around the tent where James so often has found himself. And at the moment, this bushman's grape is ripe. Now, I haven't tasted a ripe bushman's grape in years. I couldn't possibly tell you what I'm about to taste right now. Well, the initial hit is very sweet. Almost sultana sweet. Wow. I'm not going to chew it too much. Wow, that is amazing. It doesn't have a lot of fruit on it. This particular seed, wow, that is delicious. This particular fruit, there's one there. That is a unripe one, the one that's just about to get ripe. And we've got this tree's hasn't been visited by a baboon troop, otherwise they would have eaten a lot more. Here's another one that's ripe now. Also, just on the far side of ripe. Now, this tree obviously attracts birds that eat fruit, frugivores like the luries, the grey lurie or grey go-away bird and the purple crested lurie. They would eat this whole. It's a nice prize, looks good. Inside their crop, they have a bunch of stones, and the stones would help to break down these fruits, and that's why it itself gives a lot of good tasting juice, but only a little bit of fruit. You can see there, surrounded by the pip. The bird would then swallow that. In their crop, that meat or the fruit would be taken out. The bird would utilize that for its own metabolic purposes, and then the seed, which as you can see is quite sticky, would be coughed out. So the bird would cough out the seed and probably wipe it onto a branch as you can see there. And that's how you'd find these seeds all over the place. And then the next Bushman's grape would grow. So definitely from this Bushman's grape attracting birds, frugivorous birds, birds that eat fruit. And that's its dispersal mode. All right, we are going to send you over to Byron.
Now look at this beautiful bird sitting on top of the branch. Oh no, there it goes. Oh dear, it is a white-browed scrub robin. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's one of James's favourite birds. It's got a beautiful call, and I drove past, reversed, got to it, sat here, and as you got to us, it flew away. But beautiful bird. They've got a very melodious call. Most of the robins do. It's always nice to see them. Unfortunately, that one flew away, but you never know, we might see another one. White-browed scrub robin. Beautiful call. I'm going to see what other birds there are around. Excuse me. Temperature definitely is warming up. I think it's going to be quite warm again today. This cloud cover is most likely going to burn off. That's usually what happens in these areas. I'm just scanning through here. It is quite thick around this area. Never know what we could bump into. I still can't believe how quickly that young leopard disappeared this morning. And Dina, thank you very much for the compliment. She said we're all very good at spotting wildlife and creatures in the bush. And do we have any tips for you? Wow, Dina, I think, the more time you spend out in nature, the better it is, because you tend to then tune your eye into certain things that you might be looking for. So that does help. Trying to think what else. I think it's a case of don't just scan. Look for something that appears to be standing out that shouldn't be there. For example, if you're looking at trees, there's. Let me look for a little example. Even if it's not something that is an animal, but you start tuning your eye into certain things, like just scanning around, I can see the shape of birds. There's some starlings that just flew off over there, and then as we scan, I can see, and then you pick up movement too, and there's a little bit of movement off to our right, and there are some impala. They are out in the open a little bit, so it makes it a bit easier to spot, but if you're scanning like that, you can just see that looks a little bit out of place, that brown coloration. And with insects it's a different story. You just need to really have patience, look very, very carefully, and walk slowly. Take your time. That's probably the best advice I could give. Cape turtle doves calling in the distance. Work harder, work harder, work harder. It's kind of I think how they sound, especially in the morning, telling us to work harder, find the animals. I'd like to just have a look back at Sydney's dam, just see if there's any activity around that carcass that was there. Let's have a quick look. I'm not far. wonder if the lions have returned, or if maybe there's a hyena. Wouldn't that be great if you saw a hyena? Sorry, Impala. Now I see a lot of impalas standing out in the open, so doubt there are any predators around. Let's have a look. Where was the carcass? That's the other question. I don't see anything. Just having a look, and nothing at the moment. Can't see anything right now, but we're just scanning around and having a look. Oh, where was that carcass? I wonder. Oh, giraffe. Straight through there on the opposite side of the clearing. Let's see, I think, there we go. There we go, giraffe. Isn't that a nice surprise? When last did we see a giraffe? Quite a distance away, but always great to see giraffe. I'm just browsing away there at the moment. That's a nice surprise. Huh, I haven't seen giraffe for ages. I know a lot of guests that I've had in the past all love the giraffe, and they're beautiful, graceful animals, and it's lovely to see them. You'd think it would be easy to spot them because they're so tall, but that's not the case. They can disappear quite quickly, just like big grey elephant can disappear in the bush. And there it goes. Alright, so I'm just going to have a look down the road. I think where that carcass is, apparently it was a little bit further down the road, not quite in the clearing. Let's have a look, see if there's anything there.
Well, it seems as though Byron has lost signal. As you know, bringing you live safaris, that's my standard set piece every time we have a situation where the signal disappears. Bringing you a live safari from the middle of the African bush is quite a technological feat all in itself. So sometimes things do go wrong, and we do apologize, but I'm sure he will be back up and running shortly. I'm sure as soon as he goes still, his signal will resurface once again. I wanted to bring this up. Actually, I completely forgot about it until right now. But we went down a rabbit hole, one of those rabbit holes that one finds yourself going down in general conversation. And I think Genre was actually one of the ones. He was the one who initiated it, talking about horse crab blood. Horseshoe crab blood. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Horseshoe crab blood. And we ended up starting to research the most expensive liquids in the world, as you do, naturally, when you're having a conversation on a table. And we found a list, or Brent found a list, and I don't know fully the exact accuracy of this list, but it probably does give you a good idea. So obviously the crab, which they aren't actually crabs, but the crab blood is one of them, at, what was it, Genre? $60,000. $60,000 a gallon. And then it obviously proceeded through the various lists. Chanel number 5 was on that list. The top 2 were a surprise to all of us. The top two, the second one on the list was king cobra venom, which is fascinating to think, and I can't remember what it was, how much it was. I do remember about, 150,000. Okay, there we go. Genre does remember. $150,000 per gallon. The absolute top of the list by a long way, and it didn't specify this particular list, and again, I'm not sure about the scientific accuracy of this particular article. The top of the list was scorpion venom at $39 million per gallon. Obviously, it takes quite a few scorpions to provide you with a gallon's worth of venom, quite a few being a serious underestimation of how many scorpions you need, and I'm not sure how they came to that figure or how they've come to that figure, but it was the most extraordinarily interesting rabbit hole to fall down. That the fact that these sorts of insulin obviously was on the list as well. Just while I'm thinking of the different liquids, 2 little Duikers, both running, both not wanting to be on camera this morning. Stop. Good girl. Thank you. Boy. Sorry. My apologies. My sincere apologies. Good boy. There were 2 of them dashing past. Here we go. A grey Duiker. Not often an antelope that stands still long enough to get more but a fleeting glimpse of them, so I'm glad that one stood still. But yes, back to our liquid conversation. Very interesting. The king cobra venom, obviously because of the way the neurotoxic effects. Oh, sorry, Duiker's still there. In an unusual situation, this particular male Duiker is not sprinting away. So we'll diverge for the moment from our discussion of the most valuable liquids on Earth. A very shy antelope, more so than steenbok, which are roughly the same size. I don't find them to be the most attractive of antelope, but they do have a quite unique mohawk that sits between their ears, and those very sharp dagger-like horns. I'm sure many of you will have seen the skull in the tent that James has, just to give you an idea of just how actually potentially lethal those horns can be. Over enthusiasm. Right, JB. Breathe first, then talk, then swallow. No. Whatever order. Don't try and do all 3 at the same time. Back to the lethal things and the liquids. King cobra venom apparently is used in the treatment of MS. Obviously because of its neurotoxic effects. I don't know exactly how it works, and its impact that it has on nerve synapses. I don't know how it's utilized, but that is that's. Sorry, everybody. I was trying to respond to James, but he's just telling me that there's a herd of elephants where we just drove. as is part of the course. Marcel, apparently you are Googling how to farm scorpions. I would be lying if I didn't tell you that we went through a very similar thought process before deciding that it probably wasn't a viable way of making money, and probably not very fair to the scorpions, although we do farm lots of different things. Yeah, we did have a similar conversation. We also had a conversation if our scorpion farming future failed, if perhaps the effects of cobra venom might apply to our cobras in this area as well. We finally concluded that perhaps it would be we started to then work out how much venom how much venom a cobra produces in a day. 4 milliliters roughly per day is the answer, but obviously that's very dependent on the individual and not a constant process. There you go. You learn something new every day, particularly when you live in our camp and you discuss such odd things. Hello, Woodlands. such a characteristic call. You can see just how wide their beak can actually open. Beautiful view. Oh, bye. Oh well.
Got him.
Oh, you got him. Alright. Just the tip of the tail and then the vibrating beak sticking out on the other side. And really giving you a gorgeous view of that turquoise colouring. We're so lucky that for most of us living out here, who needs jewels when you've got birds like this flying around, living, breathing and singing? Beautiful morning. Right, I'm going to continue on since our Woodland is playing Woodland Kingfisher is playing hide and seek with us. Let's head over to Byron, see how his search is going.
We've managed to find some beautiful antelope, the Nyala, some females and youngsters, and they're just hiding in the shade of a little thicket at the moment. One or two lying down actually. I'm just resting. There we go, you can see one lying over there. Now I did get a glimpse of some dwarf mongoose running around here too. Not sure if we'll be able to see them. We'll just keep an eye out. It's so interesting to see how they're all just resting in the shade. I'm not interested in moving around too much at all. I almost forgot this morning that we also saw that beautiful black mamba, which was a question from My World Your Music. You wanted to know how many females will a male Nyala mate with, I assume is the question, in a lifetime. Now, that's very difficult to say. I don't know. I really don't know. Because it all depends on, are there other dominant males around, how many females are around, how successful a male is. So I don't think there's an answer for that, to be honest. It could be anything. It could be one group of 5 females. It could be 30 in a lifetime, if not more. I don't know. I have no idea. It's not something that I think we'd be able to tell, because so many variables that go into that. So it would be difficult to come up with an answer for that. Anyway, those Nyala seem very comfortable there. Can't see where the dwarf mongoose have moved off to. These breaks, I honestly think, scare everything away. There's a beautiful bird that I just saw fly past. I don't know. It's gone. It's gone. Like most of the birds. Gone with the wind. It was a blue waxbill that I saw. We saw them yesterday at the dam. Little blue waxbills, beautiful little birds. Was it yesterday or the day before? Can't even remember now. I think the day before. been a lovely morning, nice cool morning, beautiful relaxing drive. We did see quite a bit today, which was great. Nice to find some animals again. When was it, yesterday? No, the day before. I struggled, which happens. It's good, it's very good. It keeps us humble and makes us realize these are wild animals. You can never guarantee anything. You don't know what you're going to find or what you're not going to find. All depends. And I have got, I think, 1 or 2 more drives with all of you, unfortunately, but then I'm off away back home, and then but I may see you in the new year again. But it has been a fun 3 weeks again. Always great being here on Safari Live. Always exciting and learning a lot. Sorry, I think I lost comms there for a second. Alright, anyway, I'm going to say goodbye for this morning. And Brian and the Thumb, thank you very much, Brian. We'll see you all this afternoon. Let's head over to Stef on the bushwalk. Goodbye, everyone.
You know, these stumps from the Ozoroa trees never fail to amaze me. They always grow in these fantastic shapes and forms. But in this particular case, they've provided the shelter for a potter's wasp. That is the basically homes of the potter's wasp babies. She will build these pots out of clay and saliva. She'll then go and find a caterpillar, sting it, immobilize it, put it inside one of these pots and lay an egg on it. The egg then hatches, and the larvae of wasps are carnivorous. They'll eat that caterpillar alive and then pupate and come straight out of the top as a young wasp, leaving behind these pots. Isn't that incredible? Now, we've come to that time of the day where I have to say goodbye. So from myself and VM, thank you very, very much for joining us, and we'll catch you again on another bushwalk. Off to Jamie you go with some bee eaters.
Well, we're finishing off a beautiful sunrise safari with one of the most beautiful birds in the form of a little bee-eater, also known as the springbuck bird because their colours match that of our rugby team. It would be very nice if perhaps they could fly over and inspire our rugby team. Perhaps we might have better fortunes in future games, but let's not dwell too long on that, for I fear I might start to cry. But yes, the little bee-eater, the permanent bee-eater resident of this area, and of course, as its name suggests, as you may have guessed, the smallest of our bee-eaters. Beautiful green and gold, well, green and yellow, let's not exaggerate, green and yellow in coloration. Oh, little puffed up thing. There were 4 of them, there is now but 1, but they did pose for us most beautifully, a really nice way and to finish off our morning safari, especially since we've had long discussions about the fact that our birds don't seem to want to stay still for us. And on that note, it has reached that time again where it's time for us to do our goodbyes and our thank you. So our big thank you, our big thank you, I suppose is a way of phrasing it, to Jean-Dre for his wonderful camera work, to Jerry and Rebecca in Final Control, and the entire behind-the-scenes Safari Live team. And most importantly, a big thank you to all of you. I keep glancing anxiously in case they have returned, but unfortunately not. A big thank you to all of you for joining us, for sending through your questions and your comments. I look forward to seeing you on the Sunset Safari, but until then, I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye, everybody.